Welcome to The Source, where we combine the headlines with in-depth conversations with the newsmakers themselves. Today on the program. 5 years since the storm that wreaked havoc on Eastern Visayas.
It's now 5 years, but the memory of Yolanda is still like a bad dream.
Survivors of Super Typhoon Yolanda are getting back on their feet.
I think the word is not giving up. It's just letting go and accepting. Where do you even begin to look for someone kung walang lead?
The road to recovery and the challenges hounding the rehabilitation.
Wala doon hanap buhay. Ang hanap po buhay dito lang sa daga, nanlaot lang asawa ko.
Through the eyes of a survivor and its former city mayor. Former Tacloban Mayor Alfred Romualdez joins us live. And later, an invitation to aliens sent through a laser. That's for today's In Focus. Thank you for joining us. I'm Pinky Webb. A terrible memory no words can describe. Super Typhoon Yolanda, known internationally as Haiyan, barreling through Eastern Visayas 5 years ago. Yolanda first made landfall in Giwan, Eastern Samar on the early hours of November 8, 2013. More than 6,000 people died, mostly due to a towering storm surge. Hundreds of thousands left homeless. Authorities now call it the deadliest, most destructive natural disaster in our country's recent history. One of the areas severely hit by the typhoon is Tacloban City. How are the people there remembering Yolanda? Let's go straight to the source of the story. We have former Tacloban City Mayor Alfred Romualdez. Mayor, good to have you again.
Yes, good to have you. Good to be here too.
It's been 5 years, huh?
Yes.
How do you feel? How is Tacloban 5 years after Yolanda?
Oh, it's a lot better now. And what's important also is even the attitude of the people. There's a very, very big difference. Noon, pag sinabi mong masamang panahon, I mean, they take it lightly, but now they really check the weather even, a week before. And, they're very concerned. And even where they build their houses, where they construct, where they do business, it's really, I think, an incident, a disaster that they'll never forget.
Not just them, I'm sure, but mostly, especially those affected by the typhoon, Mayor. But I think it's a good thing that you say that there's more awareness,
yes.
Consciousness
Yes.
on typhoons, on storms, and especially where they actually put up their businesses and homes. So let's just talk about those displaced. Do you have a number to tell us? Are there still people displaced because of Typhoon Yolanda?
Well, we requested in our master plan, we have about 14,500 our requests for housing. And
These are individuals or families?
Individual families.
Okay.
Oh, families. And so far, 10,000 has been started. We have about close to 9,000 that's already accomplished. It's finished. But you see, that's where the problem comes in, because the construction is finished. Okay, for example, the construction is finished, but the city government cannot issue a occupancy permit because there are no utilities, there's no water, there's no electricity. So it's different, but as far as construction is concerned, it's accomplished, it's finished.
How do you feel, though, when, people actually say that andyan na yung bahay, gawa na yung mga bahay, but in fact, kulang talaga because it's not a livable house, so to speak?
Well, it's very frustrating on our part. In fact, I believe that during that time, just like what is being practiced in other countries, they should examine the capability of the local government unit. Like Tacloban City, we're a highly urbanized city. And all they needed to do during that time, I mean, for housing, as far as housing is concerned, just download the funds and we can do it. Because it's the same thing. All they did was get contractors from Manila, mostly from Metro Manila. And what did they do? They ended up selling their contracts, subcontracting it to contractors in Tacloban or in the area. So what's the use of doing that? And then the policies that they made really did not conform to what's happening on the ground. Like, for example, the policies that they made, when you build a house, it's supposed to be with, electrical plans have to be done and all that. in Metro Manila, you just build a house, then Meralco comes in and connects to you. But we have a cooperative there, Leeco.
Leeco?
Yeah, and
Okay.
it's not as simple as that. You have to buy the post, you have to pay for the transformer, so it's different. So you have a lot of housing now there that don't have electricity because of that problem.
So you said that there was a request for 14,500 families for homes, and you said that 9,000 have been built so far?
9,000 are more or less have been built,
But in the
but
9,000,
not yet completed.
are they livable?
No, not all.
So, in the 14,500 families, ilan na po yung nakatira sa bahay na may electricity at may tubig po?
About 8,000.
Okay, so there was about a balance of 1,000 na
Yes,
hindi pa kompleto.
nakatira, but not all of them have electricity.
Yes. You're obviously the former mayor. How does it actually make you feel? And what do they tell you when they say, Mayor, may bahay nga kami, pero wala naman kaming kuryente, wala naman kaming tubig. What can you do? What can be done? Paano ho ba mabubuhay ang tao sa isang bahay na walang kuryente at tubig?
It's really frustrating, but that's why we went through the process of like last year and early this year, gave a proposal to Malacanang, which they fully supported, to connect water. And within a year, we're supposed to have water in that area. Because I already, explained that earlier on to the former national government, na sabi ko walang tubig sa area na yan, we're going to build houses. In fact, even the new regional hospital, that's being built, it's more than $1 billion. I mean, it's really huge. And there's no water connection yet there. So I had to give a recommendation to the president that if we go this direction, we had to take over the Leyte Water District, in order to make that, to fast track that program. And that's what's happening now. And I see now the results. I mean, but we're really correcting a lot of errors that were made from the past because
Made from what? The previous administration is what you're
policies. More really, the policies were really maraming mali-mali. And it was difficult for me to talk because of politics. I was branded as an opposition.
Yeah.
So, but these were really policies that, I did not want resources of the government being wasted. We don't want to go back and build and then go back later on and redo the whole thing. And it was really frustrating for our new president also because he had to correct all of those. And mahirap na, it was bidded out, it was given out already, so it was
But
difficult.
where really was, it's not to do a blame game, sir, but when you look back, saan nag-ugat yung problema? Where was the problem? Poor planning?
It's not only poor planning, but most of the errors were, it was a guessing game. And the local government, kaya sinasabi ko, it was always announced before that the plans were coming from the ground and up. That was a total false. They were making the plans up and we had to adjust down.
And dapat down, up. The
Yes.
plants are supposed to be down.
Cross-coordination,
going up.
yes.
All right. I just want to show pictures. These are pictures coming from, your office. I understand that, Mayor, I think during the first day of Typhoon Yolanda, you already went out, obviously. Sumakay ho kayo ng payloader and you tried to. I mean, when you look back at that time, sir, how does that, how do you feel? I mean, I don't even want you to begin to describe how painful that the scenes were back then.
Well, first of all, a few hours after the storm, when I knew that my family survived and I survived, there's a purpose for that. So I didn't have even time I wasn't eating. I ate 2 days later. And immediately I went back to the scene that night. And the following morning, we cleared the roads.
Yeah.
Because that morning, I could see already military planes flying over. But I said, they can get to the airport, but they wouldn't be able to get to us.
Right.
So we had to clear the roads. It was full of debris. And that was really a difficult task. And not only that, of course, we were hit badly. So I had to check how many employees we still had.
Yeah. How many employees did you have?
And immediately after the storm, I only had 14 people with me. And all communication was down. So, it was very difficult to get that coordination. And to coordinate that and to coordinate with the national agencies as another problem. And basically, mahirap kasi even the national government with a lot of resources were not prepared. And it was really difficult because I would say it's really sad, but it was really politics.
Yeah.
Because naging effective yung tulong ng international community because they did not play politics.
Such as, I remember, sir, the USAID.
Yes.
I remember an interview where you said that, I guess in that situation, we were obviously not prepared, number one, for that. We are no experts. You are not an expert. Neither is the national government for such a devastation. But even you were saying the distribution of food, which obviously was one of the most basic needs, was not done properly.
No. Well, the preparation was done to a certain extent, but what threw us all off was the last command conference meeting wherein orders, instructions were given, and we were led to believe that the storm was going to hit us by noontime, but it actually hit us 5 hours earlier. And to prove that, even the head of Pag-asa in Tacloban City, we never found her remains, and she died in her office. The office was swept away. So, or even that, they were caught unaware. So that was the most difficult, plan there. But I have to say this, that a day after the storm, the first person that asked me, Mayor, what can we do for you? And this was like 1 or 2 days after, was a U.S. Marine soldier. And he said, and then I said, okay, we have to start distributing relief goods outside of Tacloban because people are all flocking to the city.
Yeah.
And they're raiding now the malls and they're raiding the groceries and all that because there's no food up in the mountains, there's no food out there in the provinces.
Yeah.
So they're all coming to the city. So we have to make them stay out there because if we congest the city, we cannot move our equipment, we cannot open the hospitals. It's very difficult. So that was
very strategic.
Yes.
All right, we'll be taking a short break. This is The Source on CNN Philippines coming up. What are the remaining challenges and what else needs to be done? Former Tacloban Mayor Alfred Romualdez will still be with us after the break. When you look back...
Giwan was already a ghost town at that hour. It was so late in the evening and the entire town was so eerily quiet. So we started to feel Yolanda's destructive presence about 3 o'clock in the morning of November 8th. The roof of the lodging house where we were staying was about to be blown off. So we immediately scampered to find a sturdier structure where we can hide. So we were able to seek shelter in a 5-story private hospital. While it was a concrete building, you could actually feel it shaking when Yolanda made its first landfall. Now, we only saw the extent of devastation hours later. It was complete chaos. There was looting, people wandering, trying to find a place to stay or food to eat. Power and communication lines were down. The local government was virtually helpless. Policemen and soldiers, given their very small number, did their best. What we were about to witness next was far more worse than what we have initially seen. What was supposed to be a 4-hour travel, it took us about 16 hours to reach Tacloban. We never imagined that the situation in Tacloban City was way worse.
You're watching The Source on CNN Philippines. Our guest today, former Tacloban City Mayor Alfred Romualdez. Is there anything, after all the pain, the hurt, the devastation, what good came out of this?
Well, lessons that are learned from the past that, will be incorporated now and made into law. And, and I think they can craft better laws now. They can create departments also.
Yeah. What do you suggest? Because, Mayor, I remember, we're going to show a video also of your home, no? Because ito nga your daughter, you were telling me, she had to embrace a post, ganun ba?
Oh, the video you're showing, that's the building we ran to.
Yan yung pinuntahan ninyo?
Yes, that's the building that we ran to because the water was already rising.
Yeah.
And then my men pulled me inside. You see the water coming in there. And I actually commanded them and told them that, break a hole to the ceiling. We're going to die here. That's why they were breaking a hole to the ceiling. And you can see behind us a lot of water.
Kasi talagang yun na yung ano nyo, and that's the only way.
Because we could hear the
get
waves pounding the roof. And, there were just 2 walls that were preventing from the water from coming in. And we were able to go up there, but 7 out of 14 of my men were not able to make it up there. But they survived. But they went behind. But they survived.
Okay, and of course the story of your family is also very, of course, good news naman eventually, but the horror of...
Well, when I got out there, nung bumaba na yung tubig, I ran to them. It was difficult because the winds were still so strong. And I saw their car outside of the residence. It was in the highway. So I got scared. I thought they were inside. But when I saw Christina from afar, that she was okay, I said, she's okay. Then, as we reported, ko nakita yung mga bata na okay.
You're talking about 2 families here. Your family and the people of Tacloban, which happens to be your family as well. So you're saying, of course, lessons learned. What could be the most important thing that should be done immediately, because we are prone to an average of 20 typhoons a year, Mayor?
Well, ang nangyari sa Tacloban, the emphasis was given on relief, which is actually the last stage in a disaster. The first one is actually rescue. There was minimal rescue during the time. We didn't have the capability, really, even the equipment to rescue. That's why we needed dogs to come out to identify bodies or people who are alive who were trapped inside, so we could rescue them, and to retrieve all the dead that we could, all. And then the last phase was basically relief. Ang nangyari sa amin, na-emphasize sa relief. You see, that's why a lot of people are crying out loud. Retrieval was not done. We had a problem with bodies, lying all over. And, I was very concerned on the morale of the people. Because, kahit sundalo, namatayan sila, ililibing muna nila yung patay na, then they go back to war. So this is what I was arguing, that, let's do that first. And, that was the big argument we had with the national government.
Hindi ba dapat, sir, sabay?
Hindi naman makakaya ng sabay, because the relief was coming, but that's another thing, because we also had warehouses that were still intact, full of goods, and the businessmen were complaining, why did they have to get it all the way in Manila? They could have bought the goods here, that we still had warehouses, for that. So that was another issue that came up. So sabay-sabay, and I felt, and when I saw this, that even the unit, this is what I heard, the rescue unit of the armed forces during that time was already dissolved because they put up NDRRMC. So there was no rescue unit really from the armed forces. In fact, it took the armed forces, Philippine armed forces, took them more than 24 hours even to get to us.
Senator Ping Lacson, who was the presidential assistant for rehabilitation and recovery, he said that a lot has been done, a lot has been accomplished, but he said that really many thanks to the NGOs and the private sector as well as the business sector. When you talk about funding, how big of a problem was that?
It's big because it was a very big problem because, first of all, the policies were wrong. Narinig nyo naman nung araw, di ba, nung ginawa nila yung mga bank houses, mali-mali. And there was sort of corruption involved also in that. And then even building now the permanent homes also was a problem. And then we had people staying in tents for several months,
right,
because they couldn't build the temporary shelters. All of that pwede naman gawa ng paraan yan.
But if government was saying, Mayor, also that it was also very difficult because to build temporary housing, you also need, number one, of course, yung mga right of permit from the owners. Was there a lot of resistance, do you think?
No, because to build all that, we offer that. In fact, we pwede naman sabihin, pwede mo itayo yan to follow na yung permit. When we were doing
especially
that.
On situations like this.
Yes, of course, situations like that, But for example, we had difficulty because there was even no established standard for building a temporary shelter. There was no standard.
And when you mean standard, you mean what? what is it made of, how big is it, for how many?
Exactly. It's very important. And the ones they built were so close to each other that the national government, well, in terms of the fire, would not give us a permit. So I couldn't issue an occupancy permit because they were saying it's too dangerous because it's too close to each other.
And during times like that, of course, you want to do the right thing. Pero
Yes.
kung yun po ang kulang, kailangan ng occupancy permit dahil tabi-tabi yung bahay. What do you do?
Well, nag-iingat din ako because that's why what happened was I told the national government, that agency exempted first the permits. Bigyan ng exemption muna. So it was very risky. And the international community were objecting also to it because they said, it's not safe.
And possibly, Mayor, the cry of the many residents, knowing fully well that there's a lot of help, there's a lot of donation coming in, pouring in, and then maybe the question, of course, foremost in their minds is, I need a place to live.
Alam nyo, trinace din namin yun that problem. And you know what, actually, the problem there was? A lot of people there could have received the help directly from international or from outside, from family members who are abroad. But the banks were not operating electronically till 3-4 months later. So you couldn't wire money to the city. So you had to course it through NGOs and INGOs. That's where the problem started. And they had to course it also to the national government. But if the banks were open and they could operate electronically, that you could wire money, mga OFW, maraming pinadala. Pero hindi na pwede padala directly to Tacloban because the banks were not operating.
Mayor, when I look back at the whole incident, you have a storm surge, a lot of criticism on even some officials because people don't really know what a storm surge is, di ba? Napag-usapan niyo na lahat. You lose what? 6,000 people dead, missing. That's just yung pinakamababang estimate. And then you go to, Giwan, Tacloban, dead people on the street. Sometimes you just wonder, where do you really begin, especially on day one? Clear the street as you did. Help those who have lost their loved ones or the missing loved ones. And then, of course, it has to be a lot of forward thinking also, hindi ho ba? Kasi,
alam nyo, like for example, in fact, the media can play a very big role in educating our people. Because, for example, they were announcing 40-meter no-build zone. The issue is not the distance away from the sea. The issue is the elevation of the land compared to the elevation of the sea. So we had to correct that. But immediately, the pronouncement of Malacanang was 40-meter no-build zone. So people were thinking, if you build a house 50 meters away from the water, you're safe. But actually, that's not the measure. See, so we had now to get the help of international community and other countries who are helping us. In fact, they made a topographical map of Tacloban. So we could now discuss now, and we could plan properly in terms of the elevation of the land. So if you tell us now that there's a storm surge 70 feet high, and you live in a certain area, alam mo kung aabot yung tubig na yan sa'yo o hindi. Because like New Orleans, they're like 3-4 miles away from the coastline. But they got hit hard. Why? Because their city is below sea level. And these are the learnings that we have to know.
Right. Us, the media, everybody, the Filipino people need to understand that.
Yes. And another thing, that's why Al Gore went to Tacloban, Vice President, during that time, because he found out what was really strange was when you have a storm surge, you don't have receding of the tide before the storm hits. This happened because the storm was just so strong that hinigup niya yung tubig, tapos binato sa amin.
Nag-withdraw.
Yes, that's why they were accusing us that we were, a lot of the fishermen even thought it was a tsunami. But irregardless whether it was a tsunami or a storm surge, the mere fact that the water goes back, it's going to hit. And Tacloban also is situated at the end of a bay. So, kaya marami rin kaming patay kasi maraming patay sa iba-ibang municipality lahat that naanod at napunta sa Tacloban.
All right. Okay, so anyway, that's, 5 years since then. We just hope that, a lot of the trauma, the pain, looking forward, sir, it's good to look at what can be done, what can be improved. And how we can help each other.
Yes, and creating new departments already in addressing all these issues, especially when it comes to urban planning.
Yeah.
Because the report I got is 80% of our cities in the Philippines are in disaster-prone areas.
That's even more scary.
That's lacking because of lack of urban planning.
All right. Thank you to former Tacloban Mayor Alfred Romualdez. Maraming salamat, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. This is The Source on CNN Philippines. Still to come. Can laser light call aliens from space? That's for today's In Focus.